Okay, the last set of notes you get from me for this whole unit. Whew. 3 weeks of notes in one day is a lot. We got this though. We have the effects of the Industrial Revolution. So we talked about the positive things. Let's talk about the negative things. Positive, negative. Sorry, split your page, write it down. Do. Some positive, some negative. We have the first off, poor working conditions for the lower class. So some people are getting money from the Industrial Revolution. A lot of people aren't. Somebody has to work those factory machines, and there's no there's no laws yet. No laws that say you can work this many hours, you can't work this many hours. There's no safeties, there's no unions. It's very Machiavellian is the best way I can think of it. It's like, well, work at your own risk. It's kind of like COVID. Work at your own risk. No protection for these people. So the poor don't have a choice but to leave their farms and come work in these factories because more of the land is being bought up by nobility and used for like mass production of farming or mass production of coal and iron and like getting those types of things. So they leave that horrible situation and come into the city thinking they're going to work in these factories. And the factory workers don't actually care about you. So there's very limited light. It's hard work hours. It's crowded. There's hardly any windows. So if there's a fire, you're not getting out alive. Um, it's it's just a whole new environment that nobody really knows how to regulate, and the people that lose on that are the working class. So if you lose a hand, that sucks for you. Like you should have watched out better. You should have thought about your own safety. And this isn't just adults, although this picture makes it look like that. A lot of men, but also a lot of women. Gave them a lot more freedom and rights. They could work in jobs, like especially with the spinning jenny and the working thread, because they already knew what they were doing. But it was also a lot of children. So you might have been a 10-year-old who just lost your arm because it got crushed in a machine because you were the one with tiny hands that could get the jam out. Well, you got the jam out, and the machine started and tore your arm off. And now you can't work. And that sucks, man. Hope you find some work. Good luck. So, not the best. But it does lead to better education, not necessarily for the exceptional lower class, but for this rising middle class, the ones that are doing better, maybe the managers of these factories, not the owners, but the managers. And they can now give their kids a better education. And if you would like me to get on my soapbox for a minute, that education system is the exact same education system we have today. Sit in your nice little row, sit still for 8 hours a day, ask to go to the bathroom, do horribly menial labor and tasks so that we know that you're listening and know that you're learning so that you can follow basic instructions and work in a factory. Yeah. We haven't changed since the 1800s in our education system, and apparently we're never going to. So keep pushing for some change, young people. You got this. Better forms of transportation. So originally trains get invented to move things faster when there's not a quick waterway to get past, which is great. But then it turns into passenger trains and it turns into vacations for families, wealthy families at least, and it turns into a better way to get people places. So transportation is definitely a positive in my mind. A higher standard of living is next. These nice people with their fancy hats, smiling faces. This, once again, it's a rising middle class and a rising upper class. This is the aristocracy. Then they're not landed, but they may own a factory, and now they get two factories, and now they're going to own their own ship because they can ship their own goods faster, and it allows people to have this free time, the vacations, the vacation home, the traveling to see friends, this leisurely lifestyle, even though they're not nobility. So that's a change in history. No longer is it just the nobility that can afford to do anything they want. And it does bleed into the lower classes. It's kind of like poor in America isn't the same as poor in South America or poor in Africa or poor in Southeast Asia. Our poor is not the same as someone else's. So our poor means that you may not eat 3 meals a day. You might eat two or one, or you might be eating a peanut butter jelly sandwich instead of, hamburger helper. But you still ate. Like you still have most likely a roof over your head, or you still have a cell phone in the family, if not one for everybody in your family. And that's a lot better than people in Africa or in South America or in parts of Southeast Asia. So that's really what's happening here. Like the poor aren't as poor as they used to be with the standard of living. So at least you have a job. And if you can't get a job at this factory, you can probably get a job at the other factory. And it might not pay as much as you want it to, but at least you're getting paid. So the standard of living is getting a little better because also goods are cheaper. It's cheaper to buy a factory made dress than it is to buy a handmade dress. So, things to think about. Depressing part, environmental pollution keeps up. Like steam engines burn coal. Coal is a horrible burner. It just lets smog all up in the air. So pollution is a serious problem to the point that like you would get, if you had a cut on your leg and you got in the Thames River in England during this time, you were probably going to have that leg amputated because you were going to get a disease. If you just didn't die from the straight up fever you got. Like the pollution was disgusting and it took way too long to get environmental laws put into place. Population increase. People are doing better. They're living a little better lives. The poor aren't as poor. And you have more free time. So that encourages people to have more babies. So the population is increasing, which is kind of good. There is, I mean, you can see like this is pre-World War II with all these major apartment buildings squished side by side. And the housing is going to be a problem in these major cities, like overcrowding. But it is good to have population increases because it just means more workers for more money. And it leads to urbanization. So your money is being made in the cities now, not on the farm. So you want to come to the city to work in those factories, to work your way up, to maybe manage, to maybe own. It starts this corporate ladder cycle going. So you have people living in the cities. And that led to a lot of really bad planning. So if you can look at the background of this picture, you see that there's houses close by, close by, close by, close by. There's no room. There's hardly a walkway between them. It leads to bad streets and hard to get around. It's like why the traffic on Goodman is so bad, because we just urbanized too fast. We became a city too fast for the city to handle it. So like we're still trying to fix traffic areas here, and that's like a joke now. Like that's a low level problem compared to what the cities like England and like London and Paris, and like this is a picture of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, where they just couldn't keep up. So they built more and more houses and houses and houses. Oh, we need a cemetery. Oh, we need a road here. Oh, we need we need a park. We need green space. We need like things like that. Like it's just really poor planning because it came so fast that it didn't allow you to do it logically. So I think at this point you've played the urban game and hopefully your cities look a little better than this one, but it's still complicated. So. We've already talked about this one. Growth of the middle class. There's the middle class. You're not super broke or super rich, so slowly but surely they're having a middle class. You don't live paycheck to paycheck. You have a little bit of extra money, which is great because it only helps the economy. So the middle class is exceptionally important for buying things like tea and coffee because you have a little bit of extra money. You don't have to spend it only on essentials, which just grows your economy. So now there can be another tea and coffee van. Look at that 1700s food truck. We're getting into capitalism versus communism now. Sweet, I didn't think it was part of the slide. Okay, so economic systems in a country, trade and industry are controlled privately for profit. That's communism. Capitalism is the flip side of that. Economic system in which property is publicly owned and everyone works and is paid according to their ability and needs. I'm sorry, I flipped that. Capitalism is for profit. Communism is according to your needs. Yeah. So when you have this extra money and you have this insane growth in your economy and suddenly you have these factories that are making a lot more money than the land. So let me say this a little slower. The power has shifted from the land to the business. Doesn't mean you don't need land. You need land for resources. That's super important. So don't think that's gone away. Like you need land for resources. But you're making your money off your factories now, not off your farmland. So the government needs a cut in that. Like, let's be super honest here. The government's going to get their money. So if the taxes on the land aren't doing it for them, because it's not as important anymore, they need to figure out how to get the profit off of the factories and off of this new situation. So capitalism and communism come in as these new theories. Just like the Enlightenment gave new theories to politics, capitalism and communism are going to give new theories to economics. So capitalism is privately owned, like I own my land and it's for my profit, versus communism, which everyone, and by everyone I mean the government, owns the business and you get paid what they feel like you deserve. Adam Smith is the creator of capitalism, and he says, "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest." So I do my job because I'm worried about me. Like, I don't come to work every day because I just love what I do. That's not necessarily true. I do come here every day because I love what I do, but I also really like that paycheck. So if I didn't get a paycheck, I don't think I would come every day. Maybe every other day, but not every day. Karl Marx, on the other hand, said the proletariat have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. Working men of the countries, unite. So he's saying that the working men should have the power because capitalism gives power to the business owner. Communism gives power to the people working in the business to say, like, hey, they can't function without you. They can't run all these machines. They can't farm the land. They can't do all these things themselves. Like, you are the power in there. So we should have more power. So we should get paid based on our own work and our own ability, not for their benefit. So it's really nice on paper, but really not functional when the government steps in. So capitalism is on your left, communism is on your right. Capitalism believes in a free market competition. Communism, on the other hand, is the Communist Manifesto, which says Karl Marx was outlining what communism should look like. Capitalism looks at complaints of unequal wealth distribution, which is true. The majority of the money for the factory goes to the factory owner, next to the manager, next to the workers, even though without the workers, the factory doesn't run. But unequal wealth distribution, because they're the owner. They can do what they want. It's a private property. Communism argues to redistribute wealth. Just because you own it doesn't mean that you deserve to have the most amount of money from it. The workers do, because they're the ones doing the work. So they want to redistribute how it's seen. Capitalism encourages entrepreneurship, because if you start your own business and you have your own idea and nobody else has it, then you get to capitalize capitalism. You get to capitalize on that. And you get the money and you get the benefits. Communism, on the other hand, is where the government controls the factors of production. So there's not necessarily a desire to do anything different because the government's just going to make that decision for you. So even if you have a great new idea and you start a new business, the government's going to take it from you. And they're going to control how and when and what. So socialism is the gray area in between. It's similar to that, like, step to it. So, like, normally when teachers are like, oh, we should just average the grades, that's communism. That's not communism. It's not communism. That's socialism. So Karl Marx transitioned to communist society. So he was like, hey, let's scoot over. So we'll go through socialism for a little while, and then we'll switch straight to communism. So good old American capitalism is when everybody gets their grades. So everybody gets what they earned. It rewards success. There's a free market. It's private property and ownership, and rights protected from the government. So we have rights, and it protects the people, not the government. So Johnny earns an A, Susie earns a C, and Billy earns an F. Everybody gets what they put in. We all know now that that's not necessarily true. Like, there are definitely systems where if you're born in a certain place, if you're born with so much money, if your parents have connections, if you're of a certain race, if you're of a certain ethnicity, if you're of a certain gender, like, there's certain things that you can do to get ahead. But in just a straight up thing, your grade is your grade. We'll keep it school-wise because that's not normally influenced by those things. Your grade is your grade. Socialism takes that and is like, we're going to average this out a little bit. It punishes success. There's no reason to be good because everybody's going to get an average. So everybody's going to get the same. Socialism is the same. So it rewards doing nothing, because if everybody in the class, so one person got an A, one person got an F, one person got a C, the average of that is a C, everybody gets a C. It does redistribute wealth, and it implies a collective ownership. Like, the idea is if everybody worked together and everybody did their best, everybody would be doing better. So everybody would be living their best life, everybody just worked together. But the problem is we are naturally lazy beings, and we don't want to do the work. So I don't want to pull the work. It's kind of like being in a group project. Like, we all know we're going to get the same grade, so if I don't do it, somebody else has to do it. So I'm just going to refuse because I think they like their grade more than they hate doing my work. So that's probably why most of you hate being in a group project, because inevitably somebody doesn't do their work. So think of that as being an entire system. Like, whatever future job you have, 2 or 3 people just aren't going to do their work, and you're going to constantly do it because you care, or because you don't want that person to suffer, or because for whatever reason you think you need to. They're still going to get the same paycheck. this is like my idea of being it like a teacher is socialism is it doesn't matter what I do, I'm still going to get the same paycheck as the teacher that doesn't do anything. It tends to encourage a large welfare system and a large invasive government, which is, once again, school system. And then this is a shift to communism. So communism is nobody gets grade, which sounds really great on paper, but like, I'm just going to put you wherever I want to. So, like, once you graduate, whether you were smart or dumb, whatever, probably because you're my favorite student or my least favorite student, has nothing to do with your brain power. I'm going to decide what your future jobs are. And I'd be like, hey, Billy, you're going to go be a neurosurgeon because that's going to pay you better. And I just think that you deserve that reward in your life. And Johnny, you probably would have gotten an A, but honestly, you talk too much. So I think you're going to be a janitor. Yeah, you're on my nerves. Go over there. And that causes a lot of problems because there is no ranking. There is no, I don't even know what your grade would be. I don't know how much you remembered. I don't know what you learned. I don't know if you're intelligent or not. All I know is that I like you and I don't like you and you're my friend and you're not and you're my cousin and I don't, you're like a foreigner. Go away. Whatever. It gives the government all the power to just appoint people wherever they want it to be. So there's no private property. There's no actual rights. The government owns everything, and it leads to this totalitarian state where the government is in total control. There's very few true communist societies in the world. It tends to be more socialist. So we average things out. Everybody gets an average or the same versus communism where everybody gets whatever I decide they should get with no actual repercussions and no actual grading or anything. So everything has their faults. Everything has the faults, but I don't know if socialism or capitalism is any better. So, here we go. That is the end of our unit. Good luck on your test.